Welcome to Confirmation Class, Lesson 3. We're on page 10 in your blue book, and the theme for today is God preserves His fallen creation. We're going to talk about how God takes care of us and how He takes care of this world. The four main things we want to learn in this lesson are there for you. How does God care for me? Why do I sin? How can I be rescued from my sin? And reasons why I should love God. And we'll see we love Him because He first loved us. When you think of preserver, maybe a life preserver comes to mind, like the one around the cross, a life ring. We're going to see in this lesson how God takes care of us, how He gives us life. And how He sustains our life. He keeps on filling us with what we need for our life. So the first question we want to explore is the top part of page 10, and we want to ask that question: what does it mean that God is my preserver? How does He take care of me? How does He provide? This isn't in your book, but it's a nice way to think about how God preserves us. He is your loving protector who continually shields you from harm and preserves you from all evil. And we'll see in this lesson how God takes care of us even beyond what we think about on a daily basis. He does such a great job of providing for us and protecting us that sometimes we go through life without even thinking about it. So it's good for us today to stop and think about how God does such a wonderful job of taking care of us. Well, when we talk about God being our preserver, a story that talks about God's preservation is Genesis chapter 8, when God kept Noah safe through a flood. And this is what happens after the flood ends. Noah's on dry ground again, and he gives God an offering and a gift, and God gives a gift back to mankind. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all of the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of man, even though every inclination of his heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done." Notice this next part: as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. In that promise of God, we see how He sets up nature to take care of us. There's seed time and there's harvest. There's summer, there's winter. There's a time when we plant, there's a time when we harvest. And normally that's how God takes care of us. He uses natural means, the way the world works, the way that nature operates, to take care of us. The farmer grows food, we go buy them food at the market. That's how we are provided for. There's another story I would like you to look at. I'd like you to pause the movie and take a look at 1 Kings chapter 17. In the first part of that chapter, we hear about Elijah, God's prophet, running for his life, but God keeping him safe during a time of famine by having ravens feed him next to a brook. So take a moment to pause the movie and read through that first part of 1 Kings 17, and then when you're done with that first section, you can hit play and we'll talk about the last part of 1 Kings 17. The main part of 1 Kings chapter 17 is Elijah going to a town called Zarephath, where God leads him to go to a widow's home and ask her to take him in for a place to stay and for food and shelter. But the widow is very reluctant because she doesn't have much food to help her get through this famine, not enough to take care of her own needs, much less her child and now a house guest. But you see in the last part of that chapter how God works a miracle to keep Elijah and that family alive. So go ahead and read the rest of 1 Kings 17. You can pause the movie, and then when you're done with the chapter, you can hit play again. So what we learned from the life of Noah, what we learned from God's dealing with Elijah, what we see as God takes care of our own needs, is number one in the book. My Creator preserves me or takes care of me, number one, usually by natural means, but at times by miracles. Normally we get our food, we get our things taken care of by going to the store, buying them. The farmer grows the food, we purchase the food. But when God wants, He can work a miracle to keep us safe and to keep us alive. Another way God takes care of us is by protecting us. And many times that happens without us even being aware of it. Notice what Psalm 91 says, "For He will command His angels concerning you to guard you in all of your ways." Artwork during the Renaissance liked to picture angels like little babies with wings. They don't really seem like they could do a very good job of protecting anything, much less protecting themselves. So when you see pictures of angels like that, I don't think that's what God had in mind when He talks about angels protecting us. Instead, I think that's a better picture of what angels are really like. Angels are spirit beings that God created to be His messengers, but also to be His spiritual warriors. And you notice that angel protecting and guarding that child while it sleeps. It looks like it's a rough, tough customer with wings surrounding that child with a weapon ready and standing guard. And I think that's a better picture of how angels protect and take care of us. And notice God says He will send not just one to take care of you, but a number of them. He will send His angels concerning you to guard you. So the next blank in your book, number 2, another way God preserves us, He sends His angels to watch over me. Well, sometimes we don't think God's doing a very good job of watching over us. Bad things happen to us still because we live in a sinful world and we're sinful people. So sometimes we face things like hospital rooms or accidents or problems that enter our life. What then? Has God forgotten about us? No, Romans 8 tells us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose." It's a tremendous statement. In all things, even when cancer happens, even when there's a disease, even when there's health trouble, God says, yeah, even then, because maybe I used that problem, that issue coming into your life to make you not take your health for granted, to see it as such a blessing. And I'm still going to see you through and take care of you. Recently, we celebrated the anniversary of 9/11. And there again, how could anything good have come from something so tragic? But God allowed that terrible thing to happen to our country and something that entered our life to maybe make us take our freedom not so much for granted, to thank Him for police officers and firefighters and rescue workers, to turn to Him for answers and help and hope and protection. So in all things, God works out things for our good. So the next blank in your book, number 3, God preserves me by either keeping evil from me or He makes that evil work out for my good. Another Romans passage for you, this time from Romans 8. Paul's saying, "He who did not spare His own Son," that's God the Father, "but gave Him up for us all, how will He not also along with Him graciously give us all things?" So if God can take care of our big problems, our big needs, like salvation and forgiveness by giving us His Son, how much more can He take care of our little needs, like protection and daily food and clothing? God will provide, and since He has a track record of doing that in the past, we can trust in Him to do that in the future.